everyone. Welcome back into the history of my insanity, a book that was written by Trisha Paytas in 2013. If you are new to the channel, please come on in. And so let's get into chapter 8, Failing Hollywood. Now, just to remind you, at the end of chapter 7, just a refresh, you guys, because chapter 8, you have to know the last paragraph of 7. So let me read the last paragraph and then we'll go right into 8 because it'll make more sense to you. I also had cut off ties with pretty much all of my family. I held resentment towards my brother and father for not helping me or supporting me in my move to Hollywood the previous year. And my mom had remarried yet again, this time to stepdad number 3. And my sister was busy with her own school life. I really had no support system, mostly because I was too proud to reach out. Then in December of that year, I had to quit dancing because I had no energy to stand. I couldn't even get up to the bathroom. I literally would pee on my futon. Now, I don't know what this means. I literally would pee on my futon. When she says that sentence, it sounds like it happened more than once. I don't know. It sounds like it happened more than once that she peed on her futon. That night when I couldn't even get up on my own was the night I picked up the phone, called my dad, and asked him to rush me to the hospital. Chapter 8, Failing Hollywood. My dad picked me up at midnight when I called, no questions asked. He helped me to the back seat of the car where I lay down. I remember being in so much pain. This was the first time I felt so close to death. I remembered praying for the first time in a long time, just asking God to forgive me. I thought I'd be living. I didn't understand how I spiraled out of control, but I put the blame on anyone but myself. I blamed my dad for not helping me out. I blamed the men who slept with me and then left me. I blamed my mom for not showing me how relationships worked. In fact, I had made the choices on my own and I thought I knew everything. I never regretted my first move to Hollywood because I wanted to be on TV and my dad wasn't going to let me do it. Sometimes you only get one opportunity in life to make your dreams come true. But then again, sometimes you get a dozen. We got to the hospital, the same hospital I was born in, ironically. My dad still paid for my medical insurance, which I was thankful for. I couldn't even sit up for the nurses to take my blood. They admitted me into a room for the night. It was my first night staying over in a hospital and the first night I ever used a bedpan. The next morning, my dad came back to stay with me. I slept for about 3 days straight. Nurses and doctors came in, but I had no idea what they were doing or what they were saying. I still couldn't eat anything, but I was hooked up to a bunch of machines that I guess was feeding me in some way. I couldn't stand to shower, nor could I even talk. What happened? What happened to you that this paralyzed you? This is huge. Let's get into this because, listen, luckily on the 5th day, I was able to stand and go to the bathroom and finally able to see clearly. I felt a lot better. The problem was dehydration combined with viral hepatitis. I know the dehydration was a result of me not buying any groceries for myself. I wasn't drinking any liquids except maybe a Coke. I would pick up at the liquor store once a day. Viral hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver. I remember I had an abnormal liver count and I couldn't be released until it was back to normal. You will continue to hear me read, but this portion of a few pages was accidentally deleted. So sit tight. I will be right back. I ordered my only meal I ever ate at the hospital, and it was chicken fingers. They were the best chicken fingers I've ever eaten. I am a chicken finger connoisseur. I've been eating chicken fingers all 24 years of my life, and I still dream about those Riverside Hospital chicken fingers. I was released the 5th day, and my dad came to pick me up. I stayed with him for a few days because I needed to get better. And to be honest, I needed a break from my dirty apartment and my dirty job and dirty men. Unlike hepatitis C or B, viral hepatitis is not a chronic disease. It can be a result of multiple things: food contamination, oral sex, or anal activity. It can also be brought on if you live in a nursing home, travel internationally, or work in healthcare or sewage occupations. Has it's a feces disease. Living with my dad for those few years was so nice. I had all the liquids I wanted and all the medications I needed, and it was warm, and it was clean, and it was familiar. I just watched TV all day and didn't have to worry if I was going to be making money and how much. After staying there and talking with my dad, I told him I was behind in my bills, in a great deal of credit card debt, and I had no job. I wasn't going to tell my dad I was basically a hooker. My dad asked if I wanted to move back and go back to school. Did I want to? Absolutely not. I was very hesitant about the whole thing. My biggest incentive was my dad offered to not only pay school as he had in the past, but also pay me to go to school. For every class I was enrolled in, he'd pay me $100 each month. I would have to give him reports on how I was doing, but it sounded like a good opportunity. Plus, an additional $100 for every A grade I'd get at the end of the semester. I had always been good in school, even if I hadn't liked it, so I agreed. Also, I was on the verge of eviction, and creditors wouldn't leave me. Wait a second. And creditors wouldn't leave my phone alone. I thought, what better way to solve my problem than to just escape them? Oh, the intelligence of 19-year-olds. They know everything, don't they? Well, I was paying month to month on my apartment after my 1 year lease was up, so it wasn't too big of a deal to move. My dad and brother went up to my apartment with a moving truck and just threw everything into garbage bags. I only had a futon for furniture, so they just tossed that. Well, of course, Trisha, it was full of pee-pee. Of course they tossed it. Thank goodness. It was the easiest move I've ever been through. It was a relief to be back at my dad's house. I didn't stay in the guest house because his wife had cats up there, so I reclaimed my old bedroom I'd had when I came out for the summers. My dad bought me a real bed with real mattress. It wasn't sleeping on the it wasn't sleeping on the floor. It wasn't my blow-up mattress, and young adults starting out and living on your own, purchase a bed with a box spring and mattress. It's the one thing I would have invested in had I known. It will change your life. It makes any stressful day not stressful. We also refurnished my room with a desk for doing homework and a new flat screen TV. It felt nice to know I wouldn't have to worry about bills and would get back to school. I enrolled in classes the winter of 2008 at the same local community college I had started 2 years prior. I was going part-time so I would not be overwhelmed. I took an English class and a math class and online Western Civ class. I made it through my first semester pretty easy, but I was getting restless. I missed going on auditions and I missed dating. My dad made me a deal. If I kept up with my college, I could drive to Los Angeles on my own and do whatever I needed to do if I let him know. It was the first sign of my dad giving up a little of the control he always wanted to have over me. I continued taking a couple of classes over the summer, but they were just fun classes. One was an acting class. I was around people with the same interests as I had, and the professor was a young theater actor who reminded me of the choir teacher on Glee. He was fun and flirty, and it was just what I needed to break away from that huge house I lived in with just my dad and his wife. It inspired me to continue pursuing my dreams of entertainment. All the monologues I performed in class, I also put up my YouTube channel, filmed in my dad's living room. I posted other videos more regularly on my YouTube as well. I was more inspired, more creative, and more tan. It was fun to have an outlet. When my real life wasn't all that exciting, my cyber life sure was. Driving up to LA was also my outlet, and maybe I didn't get to do every student film I wanted or go up for every last minute commercial, but it still was sufficient. Oops. Gotta get the shoulder out, right? Is that what Trisha does? Gets the shoulder out? Oh, God. Well, this one keeps slipping up. Well, we'll just do the one shoulder. Let's get back. After a few months off, I wanted to get into the Comic-Con circuit. This time, it wasn't about money. It was about being around people and being around Mr. 80s television sitcom cop star, as my sex life was non-existent at my dad's house. I went to these conventions in my little costume, had my Comic-Con boyfriend, and flew home back to reality. I think this messed up my head. If you have a side life, a sort of fantasy life, when you do head home to reality, you can get severely depressed. It's awful to have to go to class when no one acknowledges how awesome you are every time you walk into the room. Okay. I was so used to people wanting pictures with me and wanting to talk to me, I was sort of shell-shocked not to have anyone care who I was or what I was doing. My relationship with my mom started to get stronger that year as well. She was going through some shaky times in her own new marriage. I really only met stepdad number 3 a couple of times. Once at Comic-Con in Novi, Michigan, and once when they came out for my brother's college graduation. However, I always wanted to listen to my mom. I missed her, and I always genuinely felt we had the strongest mental connection to each other in my family. She understood my ways and the reasons I did the things I did. I don't think anyone else could ever grasp it. We talked on the phone a few times a week, and she and my sister sent me care packages. My sister Kelly came out more often to visit, to get away from the situation back there, and we became much closer. We started becoming friends rather than sisters who had lived together because we had the same mom. I turned 20 and I felt a little bit of anxiety that I was wasting my life in this town, going to college, living with my dad, and being isolated. I was itching to move back to LA after the summer, but I could never seem to save any money. I did get checks from my dad, and I would go spend them on tanning or nails or some designer shoes. I just could not get my financials together, nor was I going to find anybody to rent to me because of my credit condition. So in a sense, I was stuck at my father's place. My father had gone through some financial struggles a few years prior due to some bad investments. And that's when he started going to daily mass. He got up and went every morning, and he still does today. In the fall, I went back to stripping secretly in the City of Industry, which was about a half hour away from my dad's house. I would say I was going to work at a funeral home overnight, so it wouldn't seem weird I'd be coming home at 4 a.m. I hated lying to my dad, but I really wanted to make extra money and to get out of town where I was living and back to LA. I also wanted to quit school. Anything above anything else, I wanted attention again. I wanted to feel loved. When I performed on stage at these clubs, I felt like a star. Everyone wanted me. Everyone waited for me to get off stage so that they could talk to me, dance with me. It made me feel fulfilled. It made me feel beautiful. What didn't make me feel beautiful was the unwanted grabbing. Patrons were never supposed to touch us, but this strip club was paying us to be molested every night. I would cry on the way home, and I would stop by 3 or 4 fast food chains to eat. I didn't gain weight because I was dancing 8 hours a night, but food was my comfort, as it has been when I was a child. It was something I could rely on, and it made me happy and calm. I'd get home and my dad's office light would be on. He would wait up for me every night. I always saw this as a positive sign that my dad cared. He might have been overprotected, but he did care, but he cared about me, and I had started to see this ever since my hospital incident. I was feeling emotionally conflicted. Here my dad was paying me to go to school, allowing me to continue my dreams of acting, and waiting up for me. But all the while, I was lying to him, stripping for money, getting molested every night for attention, and binge eating to no end. I talked to my dad about being depressed and confused about my direction and purpose in life. So he suggested I go to church with him if I wanted. I started going with him every day. Even on the mornings I came home at 4 a.m., I'd wake up and go to church. Talk about a good versus evil struggle. I'd wake up and go to church, talk about a good versus evil struggle. I'd do something that was morally wrong and also mentally abusive to me at night, and in the morning, I'd pray to God for forgiveness. I was also praying for direction, the biggest constant prayer of my life. I am always struggling to find where I'm supposed to go in life. I really want to make God happy, and I also want to make myself happy. Why is this so hard for me? I went to church every day or every other day and just prayed. I went to school during the day, and at night I watched TV with my dad until I had to go to work. On the weekends, my dad and I went to the movies and out to eat. It was nice to have a year with my dad in relatively peaceful environment. It reminded me of the times in Illinois when my mom would take me out to the movies and shopping on the weekends. It was just quality time with family during normal family activities. This will be the only time I use normal and family in the same sentence when it comes to myself. Even though I loved living with my dad, I hated living with his wife. There are a lot of issues to discuss about her. I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her in this book, because I want this to be about my life, and I try to omit any memory or recollection of her being in it. She loved the power she had over my dad. Knowing her investments with his money were the downfall of his career and financial control. When he went through financial troubles, the logical thing to do would have been to sell the big mansions the two of them lived in with no kids and move to a condo or something smaller. She never would. She would never even sign the papers so my dad could borrow money on line of credit on his house that he bought from selling his business. My dad would never divorce her because he is against the Catholic faith. I'm reading verbatim. My dad would never divorce her because he is against the Catholic faith. And maybe because she wanted to get half, or maybe he is fine with the situation. I admit I judged him for staying with her. Not only is she the one who caused most of the financial troubles by investing in her interior design dreams and real estate ambitions, but she was very manipulative when it came to me. It was very rare to go to the movies with my dad alone, and it was very rare to spend any time with my dad alone. As I'm writing this, I like to see my dad and I, even if in reality it's my dad and his wife and I. She was tag along for most everything, but I never acknowledged her then, and I don't now. Even with church, my dad went every day on his own for years prior to me moving back in, but when I started going with him, she started going with him. What a coincidence that when I moved out, and even today in 2013, my dad went to daily mass alone. Any issues my dad brought up with me were because of her. I had to do chores. She thought I should have to help around the house even though they paid for maids to come every other week. She thought that since I was working, I should pay rent. This was the get out now card I was waiting for. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Just get out. I prayed so hard to God to find a way for me to get out of my current living situation and to get away from her. I prayed for my dad's happiness, but I also prayed for my own and my own peace of mind. I looked for auditions everywhere and drove up to any of them, scraping for a sign to move back to LA and build up some money. I even considered moving in with Brian, but I kept in touch through email just to get out. He wanted to get married. I didn't, but I was this close to doing it to escape the prison in which my dad's wife was to warden. I booked a reality show pilot in January of 2009, and it was all about day trading. To pick up my slack on the lavish lifestyle my dad, i.e. my dad's wife, was used to living, my dad and my brother started a day trading company around 2007. They designed computer programs to day trade S&P future contracts. I only submitted because the grand prize was $10,000, and I knew I could fake my audition by saying words like S&P future contracts. It worked. I booked it, and I went to stay in LA for 4 days to shoot the pilot. A reality show pilot is quite different from being on a reality show. You generally won't get paid for it, and it won't usually air. It's usually shot to shop around to networks And if it does get picked up, it may or may not recast you. Either way, I was excited to have a chance to win such a large lump sum and use it for getting my butt back to Hollywood before I spent it all. My dad gave me a crash course on day trading the week before I went to film. I sat with him for 5 days every morning from 5 a.m. California time to about noon. We'd watch the commodities go up and down, and he'd tell me when to buy and when to sell, how to go long and how to stay short. I can't recall much now, but there were a lot of calculations involved. He showed me where to put invisible lines to make it easy to know when to get out of a trade. I admire my dad for many reasons. He built his own company and he made millions, and he is very smart. He figured out the strategies on his own, and I was always in awe of that. He made good money doing this, and I just always hope I'd have his genes in the sense of being able to do the same. I consider myself an entrepreneur, even writing this book. I think I'll get that drive from my dad's side. Filming the pilot was an intense 4 days. Everyone was on edge. We were all actors who knew a little about day trading. At 20, I was going up against all these people who were in their late 20s all the way up to mid-40s. I doubt myself a lot in life, and this was no exception. I had just learned how to day trade the week before and was terrified. The first 3 days of filming were on teams, and nobody wanted me to be on theirs. I was last picked and was the first eliminated in the challenge to win the first bonus of $100,000. It was some trivia type setup where they asked you questions about stocks and their symbols and other pointless things that even my dad didn't know, nor did he need to know when it came to trading. I think everyone saw me as usual as the non-threat. They saw me as being there for my looks and to be ditzy. I admit with this one, I really didn't know a whole lot, or at least I didn't know as much as I said I did. The third day we were in teams of 3. And this was to eliminate people for real, to be out of the running for the grand prize. We were trading live on dummy accounts, but with that day's market, it was one of the most exhilarating experience I've had. I knew when my dad and I were trading, we always made a huge profit. As a team of 3, we each got an hour to trade. I was right in the middle of the day, and I did not like trading when I didn't get in at the beginning of the day because I couldn't use the information from the previous day's stock reports. We were trading stocks and not commodities, so it was a little different, but the same concept. My teammate, as well as other teams, were playing safe with their money, trading a few stocks here, selling a few stocks there, probably playing with a total of 50 different stocks. It was a weird method, a strategy I knew nothing about, so I stuck with what my dad told me. I remember everyone, including the creators and producers, was shocked by what I was doing. I can't remember this day's big events. All I remember is my teammates telling the cameras they were against something, but I did it anyways. By the end of my hour, we were tens of thousands of dollars ahead of the other team, when all of a sudden someone kicked our computer out and it was lost and shut down on our end. We were back at 0 and we were penalized for a technical error. It was devastating. Fortunately, the last guy squeaked squeaked by the other team by mere dollars. We did win that round, and we had to face off against each other to see who would go to the final day. Everyone on my team got his or her computer, and we had one final hour of trading to do, and the two who made the most in that hour got to advance to the final round of the competition, which was trading an entire day, one-on-one. In a weird turn of events, the only other girl competing and I advanced to the final two. It was bizarre, and I don't think anyone was expecting that. That morning of the final showdown, I consulted with my dad about the day before, and he gave me 3 big stocks that he would invest in for the day. I took those and ran with them. Right as soon as those stocks opened, I bought 300 shares of Google for a ridiculous price and a few shares of eBay for safe measure, but just rode those out the entire day. When the end of the trading day came to a close, they had both of us go to the corner of the stage where the host was in true reality show form to announce the results. The host said, by a landslide, the winner of the insert title here is Trisha. I started crying, and then what else? I blacked out. She blacks out again. I remember them having the physical cash there and handing it to me, but that was it. I do remember getting in my car and shaking. I was shaking because I had won. I was shaking because I had so much money. I was shaking because of what this meant for my future. I remember having to get gas on the way back to my dad's house and being paranoid about the money in my car when I was pumping. I just stared at it, and on the way home, I kept it on the passenger seat. Just 10 grand sitting in my purse in cash. I remember calling my dad to tell him, and the pride in his voice was something I had never heard before. We went out to dinner. His wife came too, to celebrate. There was a thought in my mind that perhaps I would use the money to get a boob job. My boobs had been uneven since I was 12. I was always hoping that they'd even out over time, but they never did. At age 20, my right breast was a D cup and my left was a B cup. I had gotten used to stuffing and wearing 2 bras, but I really wanted to get an augmentation. Again, since I'm the world's worst saver, I don't think I'd ever have the opportunity. Since I'm the world's worst saver, I didn't think I'd ever have the opportunity to afford the surgery. I contemplated getting that done instead of moving. But the sign I needed to decide came within a matter of weeks. And that is chapter 8. Kind of a long chapter, and yeah, I think I said enough during the chapter. I was interrupted a couple of times, and so I had to redo, so you might see the camera differently or whatever. But I hope you enjoyed chapter 8. I look forward to reading chapter 9, and I will see you down below where you leave me comments and I can respond. Let's get some more comments going down below. Please like this video. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.